So what you're saying is you want me to make you a ton of beer.
No, just 1 or 2 bottles. Because it's a lot of work. So I don't want you to make me a ton of beer, but I'll take 1 or 2 bottles if you
And
put
it's
honey in it.
fun.
It
It's a
is fun.
slow process.
Uh-huh.
Part of what you don't realize is that the big factories like Bud Light and the Michelob's and all those, they are making cheap beer that tastes very good at the fastest rate possible. They're
Right.
not doing it at the slow pace by letting the wort become what it needs to, by putting the right amount of hops in, by giving it 2 weeks in the corner to effervesce and to get the bubbles going, carbonate. And we can do that as independent brewers. We can just have our basement and have or our garage and put the bottles of them in the corner and say, okay, I have 2 weeks. I don't have to worry that much. I can write now for 2 weeks and then come back to this batch and see how it is.
Yeah.
But my alchemists don't get that luxury. They have to crank it out.
They do. They do have to crank it out. I'm pretty amazed. So my son, who's 26, and his dad, that's something they do together whenever my son comes in from California. They brew together. And then when he comes back in, they drink it together. And I get to enjoy some of the one or two of the bottles. And that's something they have always enjoyed doing together over the past, I want to say 4 years now. That's
a cool tradition.
It is. And they try all kinds of different flavors. And then they go to micro or craft brewers fests too.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have a fair amount of microbreweries and craft breweries here in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is also a foodie city. So you'd be welcome to join me here anytime. And yeah, sometimes
Megan and I were talking about that. She, my wife Megan, she writes erotica, and she was talking about maybe in a few months, once COVID calms down, or once we have, all of our holiday stuff behind us, we can go to Pittsburgh, because she's always wanted to go east. She wants to see Pittsburgh. She wants to see Philadelphia and the Liberty Bell, and I want to see those things too. We have adventures every year. We have adventures. A lot of the locations in Ales are places we have been and had adventures at. So
I could take you on a wonderful tour of Pittsburgh through the foodie areas, and the other place we could go, Jabe, that you would probably love, and I would love too, and then you could continue on to Philadelphia, is Gettysburg.
Gettysburg, got to see it.
Yes, you do have to see it. You don't, if you're going to Pittsburgh and then Philly, you don't want to miss Gettysburg, and that's pretty amazing. And actually, I met the wife of a tour guide who's been doing tours there for 20 years, and he gets in your car and goes with you and knows the battle inside out, upside down. And probably what we would want to do is do something like do 3 different tours with him that are 2 or 3 hours each, and just keep, so we can hear really cool parts of the battle and the little folksy tales from the battle that are that's what really draws you in too, is to hear the individual acts of heroism that are just amazing. And the Battle of Gettysburg, the 101st Regiment from Massachusetts, that blows me away every time. And anytime I want to give up on something, I think about them, because they were told, they were on Little Round Top. They were told to defend Little Round Top at all costs. And that's exactly what they did. They actually had the Confederate forces, they had run out of ammunition, and they had the Confederate forces coming at them with ammunition. And they held off the Confederate forces with only their bayonets.
Wow.
Yes.
Outnumbered, outgunned, still won.
And they still won. They held off the Confederate forces that day at all costs successfully. And so that tale and that historical event gives me inspiration every time I want to give up.
I don't know as much history about that. I would love to go and join you on that adventure and learn it and see it. And those stories, you don't realize the feelings behind the individuals who were involved until you're there in the moment. And I'm all about adventures like that. So
yes. It's a very, to me, when I'm on the battlefield, it's a very solemn feel. I have a sense of solemnity when I'm
Mm,
there, and deep sense of respect. But hearing what happened as those 3 days unfolded, and what action and the decisions, the individual decisions that were made as the forces moved, and how that affected the outcome of those 3
mhm.
days, just it's incredible. But anyway, we could have a blast in Pittsburgh. We really could. So you would be welcome, and you could stay at my house, or you could stay at a hotel nearby, or whatever you would like to do. And I would love to
You're
meet
so
Megan.
kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Megan's the history geek. She's all about Irish history. So you will see her energy come out then too, because adding to her historical knowledge, that'll just light her mind right up.
Oh yeah. I would love to talk
Mhm.
with her about that. I pull a lot of the I pull some of the Irish into my the book too, because we're in New York, and we're in, which is obviously it's Britannia, but
Mhm.
the Caledonians, which are the Scots, and the Irish, all interacted with the Roman forces at that time, and were all affected by what was occurring at that time. And then also the Druids are very involved in book two.
Yep. The
And they,
Druids. Mhm.
yes, and they are very involved with the Irish and the Caledonians, and greatly affected the Celts, and the evolution of Celtic culture. So I would love to talk with her about that.
Let's
Yeah,
make plans for like January, February sometime, or maybe when the spring hits, when it's starting to get warm again.
yeah,
Um, Having just moved, like the vacation time is
yeah. I
so,
mean,
but
we
at
could
the
even do
beginning of the
next
year, next
fall.
year,
Next fall would probably be good, because the leaves will be changing, and we can make plans,
yes,
and then we can, and that way you're not feeling pressure.
yes.
Let's do that.
We'll have to stay in touch. I know that we got the email going on, we got the Twitter going on. You can DM me anytime on Twitter. That's usually where I'm like the most prolific. So,
So
yes,
anyway, tell me
yes.
about, yeah. So tell me about that would be really, really cool. Tell me about what you enjoy teaching the most. What gives you passion with your teaching?
The two things I enjoy teaching most. First, I enjoyed teaching martial arts a heck of a lot because I believe everyone should know how to defend themselves. Um, and my master instructors, their mantra was, I intend to develop myself in a positive manner and to avoid anything that would reduce my mental growth or my physical health. And I intend to use what I learn in class constructively, defensively, and to help others. So if you are learning the forms and how to keep your guard up and what a punch is supposed to do, what a heel palm is supposed to do, if you learn enough of that over 3 months, 6 months, then when you go to college and something bad happens at a party, you can defend yourself. You're away from the parents, and you can't call the police because your phone's gone. You know where to hit on the throat or where to small joint manipulate to get someone's hands off of you. Um, I like teaching martial arts because you never know when that is going to be life-saving knowledge for someone, and in today's world, you need that. Um, and the other one, obviously, English, but specifically like the literature from like the late 1800s and the 1900s, Prohibition era, go figure.
Hmm.
Um, Teaching The Great Gatsby was the most fun I've had teaching any book, and that book, a lot of students, high school nowadays, I was like that when I was in high school. You look at the book and you think this is work. I'm being forced to do this by a
Yes.
teacher who doesn't care, who's just in it to keep their job. They're just in it to push the political agenda or whatever. No, these books are photographs of what the people 100 years ago felt like about the life that was going on around them right then. And The Great Gatsby is just like that.
Hmm.
So using the different voices, using Jay Gatsby's voice, using Nick Carraway's voice where he thinks he's showing off, but he's not, and he's being annoying. Like, there are still people who behave like that today, and that's what F. Scott Fitzgerald was saying. Like, when Nick was stalking people on the streets, but pretending he was just casually observing, like, no, we know it's stalking. We know it is. When Nick was letting Gatsby mess around with his cousin, like, no, that's drama. That's the same kind of drama you would see on YouTube on a daily basis. So when the students started to realize that, they're like, you mean people 100 years ago behaved the same way we do? that light bulb moment is what was most fun about teaching The Great Gatsby, because they dismissed it until it was shown to them, and then they were looking for it. They're like, oh, he's being as dramatic as my ex was. Like it becomes relatable when you draw that bridge between them and the past.
Yes. 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 So what is your favorite element from The Great Gatsby? Or elements, because it's hard to pick just one.
Huh. It is hard to pick just one. Well, picking just one, my favorite one is how Gatsby, he might have died. He might have, become too materialistic and he couldn't communicate with people on a human level. But he at least set up a plan for himself, who he wanted to become, and then went toward it and became who he wanted to be. He built what he wanted to build. He was ambitious, and he said, you know what? I know I have to get my hands dirty to become who I want to be. I'm not scared of that. I want what I want, and I'm going to go for it. And I love that part of his character. There aren't very many people who are going to look at their dream and then say, I have to start here and go here, and do some crazy things to get to that dream. Most people leave their dreams behind because it's too hard.
Yes.
And Gatsby was not one of those guys.
Right. Right. So what other piece of literature from ages ago do you think could be most inspiring to students now, or you think students should be inspired to read if it were taught the right way?
Well, if it were taught the right way, I've got two picks for that one. One is an all-time old favorite of mine, Their Eyes Were Watching God.
I've never read
Did you
that.
read any Zora Neale Hurston?
No.
No, Their Eyes Were Watching God. So that one is about a woman named Janie, and it's about her 3 marriages. She has 3 different marriages, one to a farmer, one to a mayor of like a small up-and-coming town, and then one to Tea Cake, who is like he's kind of a gypsy type guy. And so it's a celebration of life and of being more than what people think you should be. Because Janie was happiest when she was with Tea Cake, the last guy, and he was the poorest. He had pretty much nothing except for his genuine spirit and his music and his dancing.
Yeah.
So it's a book that kind of starts with Janie trying to be what everyone thinks she should be, and it goes into her being seriously happy with this man Tea Cake. And that, if that was taught with the journey toward happiness in mind, I think that students would get a lot more out of it, because the way it's taught as African American literature to be there in the curriculum to represent African Americans, and that's good, that's strong.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that. There's more, and it's about her happiness. And whenever in the story her happiness is in jeopardy, she goes off and does her own thing, and then gets scolded by her husbands for it. And I think that could teach people, hey, it's just as important to be a happy person, as it is to, it's more important to be a happy person than it is to do what people say you should.
Right.
If I had done what people said I should, I probably would have stayed at the old corporate job and had more money, but then be pulling my freaking hair out through stress.
Right. Right.
And the other one is a book called My Ishmael. It's about a telepathic philosopher gorilla. And it kind of reflects how human society became to be what it is. Ishmael is a gorilla who was in the circus and developed sentience. And he escaped and got a private owner. And now he rents out a suite in a building, and people come to him for answers. He put out an ad in the paper, and the ad says, if you genuinely want to save the world, come to meet me, and I will instruct you. And so he teaches a news reporter. He teaches a 13-year-old middle school student girl. And through the course of that book, My Ishmael, it pulls away the veil of what you think society is and makes you laugh and entertains you while he's doing it.
Wow.
I wish that one was taught in more schools. It gives you a different worldview. It lets you see that, maybe what really matters is genuine human connection. Maybe what matters is doing what's good for the planet, not what's good for my wallet.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
What about you? We've been talking all about favorite books of mine. Send your
No.
geekery my way. You got any favorite like literature type books?
Oh, you're gonna laugh. So, my favorite books are When Life Nearly Died by oh my gosh, I used to know this guy's name by heart, and
I'm
I
writing that
have to
down.
think. When life Okay, anyway,
When life really dies.
when life nearly died, and it is about the Permian extinction, and 95% of life on Earth was wiped out during the Permian extinction, which was 250 million years before ago. And to me, it is incredibly inspiring at the diversity at which life in the sea and life on land and life in air came back after that extinction. And so I love that book, and I've read it over and over and over again. And I'm so sorry I cannot recall the author's name because I've known it forever off the top of my head. And I will put it in the credits of this when we post this. My other favorite book is The Big Bang by Dr. Simon Singh. And it talks about the Big Bang Theory in a very entertaining, fact-based way. It is for the middle schooler to the high schooler to the guy that drives the bus to the physics teacher to the physics professor to read it. And I really tried to write my historical references and science references much the way Dr. Simon Singh did, where it can speak to anybody on any level. And I love that. And it's such an entertaining book to read, but it's so, to me, I just can bite into it and enjoy it. So
Those are the best stories, aren't they? When you read it and you know as you're reading it that anyone could connect genuinely to it.
Yes. And When Life Nearly Died is much like that too. It's a little bit more, a little bit harder to get into, but I so adored it. And I just, the diversity that with which the earth recovered was amazing. And I do believe that if we change our ways, which we're trying to, that we can recover. And I hope so for the generations coming up behind us and the future generations. So, and that's not a political statement. That is based on what we're seeing happening and what has happened in the past. So I think we can undo a lot of what we've done and see some positive changes. And then from a fiction standpoint, actually it's not fiction, but Galileo's Daughter is one of my other favorite books, which is, have you read that?
I haven't heard of that one. I should write that one down. Galileo's
Daughter. It is a compilation of the letters that his daughter wrote to him. She was a nun, and he and her had a very rich correspondence over several years. So it's a compilation of her other correspondence, and it really goes into a lot of what happened to him through the church. And I really enjoyed that book. There's so many books and then Alison Weir is one of my favorite biographers. So she's phenomenal.
I've heard of her.
Yes, she's great. So she's been great. And there's so many science fiction authors I've enjoyed. So many, and Tom Clancy, anything by Tom Clancy, I love. So
Tom Clancy, oh my goodness. So we both geek out over Tom Clancy.
Yes.
He originally got published by a college press. Not
really?
By a big six.
I didn't know
by
that.
A big six, not by a huge publisher. He was putting his books out there because they are very military technical.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So none of the big six publishers wanted that. They were all like, no, this is way too much military technical jargon. No reader is going to connect with this. It's not going to sell. It needs to have more action and more character driven and less military technical. So he went to a college press and said, you know what, this is my best bet for publishing because this college respects technical manuscripts. And that's the point of this. The point of my storytelling is to weave the action and the character arcs in with the military technical. and he got published in a college press, and that's how he took off.
I love his stories. I love his books.
Mm-hmm.
They are so suspense driven.
Yep.
And I mean, and look how they've taken off. I mean, look, just Jack Ryan, everything. I mean, it just, I just
There's
love it.
video games based on his books. There's The
Yeah.
Division, there's Rainbow Six, there's so many of his. And being a gamer geek, that's how I got my Tom Clancy experience, through those games.
Yeah. But I love his writing. I can just dive into his writing and wrap up in it. And you don't realize that it's so immersive the way he writes it that you don't
Mm-hmm.
feel overwhelmed by the technical jargon. At least I don't, by the technical jargon in it. And obviously other people don't too, because they've been bestsellers.
Yeah.
And so he's one of my hugest inspirations. So anything by him. And I think Hunt for Red October is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, because the suspense in that movie, based on, and the book is a great book too. I mean, the books usually are better than movies, but the way they both are just so good with the back and forth and everything. Yeah, it's awesome. And anything by Michael Crichton, his books are phenomenal.
Michael
So
Crichton, that guy is an inspiration. He is so good at taking just one scientific element or
yeah,
just one piece
and
and
then
like digging
boom.
so deep into it that it
Yeah,
all goes nuts.
yeah,
I read Prey by him, and that was the first book, like true novel about nanomachines, like part of nanites that I had read. Because you hear about nanites everywhere. It's used in Marvel. It's used in like what are the things use nanites? It's in a lot of cyberpunk stories. Like you get the neuromancer thing, you get nanites in there. But the way Prey was, it was only about how nanites would develop. That was it.
yeah.
There was no other side thing. There was no how does it interact with medicine? How does it interact with, other robotics? It was just let's get nanites and people studying them and have things go crazy with them and see what they would end up doing.
Right.
And it drills so deep into what would actually happen. They would get into your bloodstream and the things they would do to deconstruct you from the inside. Like, that is frightening. That is as scary as COVID is, because you wouldn't know what was happening to you. You're like, well,
Right.
I was okay. And then I walked past this science lab and now all of a sudden I lost 4 fingers. Like,
I just love I love his storytelling. I love where he goes
mm-hmm.
with his storytelling. So I find him so obviously I have a love for the sciences, as you can see, in the technical aspect of things. So that's where I go with, and biographies.
A
So
medical professional loving the sciences? What?
but I want to make them into stories that people will really enjoy, and I love history that people will really enjoy reading. An escape, a fun escape. So I hope I've succeeded in that with my writing so far. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. We're always on the journey of writing, and you're a rock star. You're doing it right now, and we're both going to keep doing it.
Well, I don't know if I'm a rock star yet. I think I'm like a bar venue player right now. But
In a few years, we will have people saying, you know what? I read Danielle before it was cool, before she was that bestseller.
I think they're going to be saying that about you. And they're going to be talking about the 2 Alchemy writers. Did you see that interview that they did together, that Geekery chat they did together, the first one of many?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to keep doing these, Jabe, because they're fun. I mean, look, we've already been on for an hour, and I've written them down so that we can do it in our intro. We've hit about 15 subject matters.
That's what happens when you let the geekery flow like that. And I've got the books written down. I like to order all of my books through my cousin's independent bookstore in Michigan, just to support them during this time.
Okay.
So I'm going to pick up a couple of books today. And When Life Nearly Died is going to be one of them.
Okay. It is, I found it, I think I think you'll enjoy it. It's not an easy read, but it's so inspiring and so full of really good information.
Yeah.
Fun information.
I'm kind of going through that kind of difficult but still fun read right now.
Yes.
There's an audiobook. What is it? It's Kim Stanley Robinson got nominated for a Hugo for this book. It's a New York 2140.
Okay.
So it reads like an old gaslight New York literature novel.
Okay.
It feels like that with the language the characters are
Uh-huh.
using, but it takes place in 2140 after the climate change effects have hit New York.
Oh,
It's
wow.
flooded, so it's the new Venice. And people use boats to traverse, 25th, and to go down to the Bronx, they're riding boats.
Mm.
And all the technology, if you don't want to get listened in on, and everyone has pads in place of their cell phone, it's buried into their wrists. So if you want your conversation to not be stalked on by hackers, you have to go into a Faraday cage and have your conversation in a Faraday cage, because if you don't, someone can hear you.
Wow.
So it takes like that gaslight noir kind of feel of old, like 19th century gaslight New York literature, and it combines it with future, like there's airships. There's a YouTube star who flies an airship to save animals and escort them to new habitats. And it's a hard read because it's slow to set those characters up. But once you give it a few hours and you realize there are street urchins living with financiers, living with police detectives, living with this YouTube star, like it's just a cool combination of all the old New York style characters, like the feel of them, with newer ones. And lo and behold, the YouTube star went to UW-Madison.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Dr. Michael Benton wrote When Life Nearly Died.
Dr. Michael Benton.
Benton, yes, Dr. Michael Benton. All right, and this is called New York 2140, did you say?
New York 2140.
Okay.
It's a little slow to start because you're getting to know every individual character.
Okay.
But they seriously feel like, I mean, you could put noir music, like with that jazzy,
Yeah.
drum
Yeah.
set going on in the background, and it would feel like that is what's perfect for this book.
Awesome.
There's a scene where one of the guys sees the ghost of Herman Melville, and he talks to the ghost of Herman Melville.
That's so cool. A torch singer kind of band. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Billie Holiday. Hey, it's been great. Tell Megan hi for me. I can't wait to meet her.
It's so fun talking with you. Megan, Danielle says hi. She squeaked hello in the background.
Okay. See you, Jabe.
See you. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. It's been great.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Anytime.